Welcome to Taming the Shelves, which is a series that I've been doing on my channel all about reading down the books that I own. If you go watch my reading goals check-in video, you'll know that I have surpassed my first goal for Taming the Shelves and am now tackling my second goal. So the main focus of the series from here on out is to read and donate and get rid of enough books that my shelves are no longer double stacked. All of my shelves right now are double stacked. There are books behind other books, even on my red shelves that's the case, and I am currently working on reading that down. You'll see that over here. I have a little bit of space here and here, so that is great. I'm already seeing the progress and I want to keep it going. So what we're going to be doing is picking from the jar, and I'm going to be picking 5 books, and I'm picking them all at once this time, and instead of like picking them throughout the vlog, and then I will be reading them throughout the month of May or maybe into June, but I'm going to be at least starting them in May due to another challenge that's running where I start a book every day in May, and I wanted to start some Taming the Shelves books. So all or most of my books are written in little tiny scraps of paper, and I'm going to pull out them one at a time. I'm going to give it a good shake. I feel like I haven't really shaken it up in a while. This is still pretty full. It's like up to there, so there's still a lot of books to get through. Okay, I'm going to try to show you first, and just hopefully, I think it needs to be like this. The first one is The It Girl. The It Girl is a Ruth Ware book, one of her new ones. I found this book at a little free library. I picked it up. I'm kind of hit and miss with her books, though I think I remember hearing that The It Girl was pretty good. So that'll be a fun one to try. And one that I've been hesitant to pick up, so it's kind of good that I'm getting to it, kind of being forced to try it, because I really wasn't all that intrigued when The It Girl was new, but when I saw it at the little free library, I was like, well, I'll just pick it up. So we'll see. Here we go. A Song for Arbonne. That's fabulous because that is a fantasy book by an author, Guy Gavriel Kay, who I own like 4 or 5 books by, and I've been meaning to try one of them, and this is a standalone, so I'm excited to try that one. I will pull all these books and show them to you in just a minute. I'm just going to pull all 5 while I'm sat here. Okay, next one. Okay. Chronicle of Alduin. This is a self-published book by a person that I actually know in real life, and I wanted to support him by buying his book. I have no idea if I will like it because I don't know the quality of his writing. I don't actually work with him anymore. He was a former coworker, but I would like to give it a try just to see if it's any good, and if it's not, I'll just pass it on because I already bought the book from him. So I did my good deed of supporting an author who is a coworker and a friend. So it's okay if I pass it on. Okay, number 4. I always like to go for like the middle, deep down. Okay. Flesh and Spirit. This is hilarious. I started this book today. This was the book I started for May 14th for the Start a Book Every Day in May challenge. So I'm not going to count that one, even though I kind of want to because I already started it, but I want 5 new ones just to make it harder on myself, you know? I'm going to have to start like 17 more books anyways, so it's fine. But that is funny. Okay, what do we got? A Redwall book. I love this. So I'm doing a reread of Redwall. It's one of my favorite series of all time. When I was younger, I read them completely out of order, just whatever I could find at my library. So I'm doing a proper like reading in publication order the series, and I think I'm on book 5, which I'm very excited about. I'll have to go double check that that's the book I'm on, but I'm pretty sure it's book 5. And then the final book for this challenge is The Broken Crown. Okay, so this is a book by Michelle West that may have a prequel series, and I need to double check which one has been written first, because I want to read them in publication order, not in chronological order. So while I'm up gathering the books, I'm going to check and see which series was written first, and if it's not The Broken Crown, then I'll get the other first book in the other series. So let me go gather the books. Okay, what I will say is that the page count are not very kind to me in this poll. These are all fairly chunky. So let's go in order, starting with The It Girl. This is by Ruth Ware. This is clocking in at like 400 pages. I don't really know anything about it. I remember not being that intrigued when it was going around, but I grabbed it for free at a little free library. I will try it and see if I like it or get intrigued by it. A Song for Arbonne. I have to say I love this cover. I think this is like a fantasy, and I think it has to do with like music and maybe like, oh yeah, this is like two kingdoms. One is like a patriarchy, one is a matriarchy, and there's stuff to do with music, and I've wanted to try Guy Gabriel Kay for a long time, and this is the one I wanted to start with, so very happy to be able to try that one. This one is just over 500 pages. Chronicle of Alduin. This is that self-published one by my friend David Haynes. This is 450 pages. The font is actually pretty big, so I'm not mad about that. And it seems fairly easy to read. Though I will say one thing that makes me nervous is the Dramatis Personae, which is like way too long for any book, I feel like. It's like 8 pages, so, we'll see. Okay, it's 10 pages. That's too long, in my opinion, but, that's what he chose. So I'm going to read it, and we'll at least give it a chapter. Then my Redwall book, I'm so excited. I love these covers. I find them so cozy. These like older ones. Ugh. I love them so much. This is not a copy I read when I was younger. This is one I got at the Goodwill for 99 cents. This is 350 pages, and I will read this and most likely really enjoy it. And then the Michelle West book, The Broken Crown. This is the first book in a series, The Sun Sword, by Michelle West. This is the earlier series. The other one was written in 2007. This one was written in 1997. This is 780 pages almost. So this one's chunky. If I do this, I will be starting 2 new series, but at least continuing with one that I'm working on. There is a chance that neither one of these will work for me. 90s fantasy has not been the greatest for me recently. I've been finding myself really not loving it, and it might be that I am not a 90s fantasy lover, and just trying them and at least getting them off my shelves if they're not for me is something that I'm working towards. That's what this challenge is all about. I got involved with this series or interested in this series because of this cover. I love it. I love 90s fantasy covers. I think this one is like so beautiful, but sometimes the inside doesn't match what the outside is making me hope for. But I remember thinking this one sounded interesting when I read about it, and Michelle West is an author I've been wanting to try. So I will be attempting to read all of these. DNFs are very fair game on my channel. We DNF liberally because there are way too many books I want to read, and I can't read them all to completion, especially if I'm not liking them. This is going to be my stack, and I will start with one of them and then update you when I get to that. I'll have to pick a day to actually start reading them for my Everyday in May challenge of starting a book, and we'll just go from there. But I'm excited about this stack. Almost all fantasy, because I just have a lot of fantasy on my shelves. So it'll be interesting comparing lots of fantasy. Hello! I am here with an update because I have been working on The It Girl. If you've seen my starting a new book every day in May project and the video project after that where I was like spinning the wheel to choose my different books, I have been reading this book through those, and I am very close to being finished. I'm less than 100 pages from the end, and I'm planning to finish it either tonight or tomorrow morning. So I wanted to give you an update on how I'm feeling and then tell you, you know, kind of what I think of it once it's all done. But since I've read so much, I want to share how I'm feeling. So this book is about a woman named Hannah, and it's following her life on two different timelines, one in the past and one in the future. And when she was in college in the past, her roommate gets murdered. And in the future, there's been some questioning as to the person that they caught for that murder, whether or not it was the right person and whether or not the murderer is still getting off scot-free. So this book has been interesting. It's not a thrilling page turner, but I will say the chapters are short, and even though there's a little bit too much meandering for my taste, like I feel like we could have taken out 50 to 75 pages and made a much tighter, cleaner story. I am finding myself very curious as to what actually happened, and I've had like a few ideas, and I'm not sure which one is going to be the one that is true, but I have a few theories, which I won't share because I don't want to spoil anything about this, but I am surprisingly liking this one much more than I thought I would. This has definitely been a surprise for me. It's one that I wasn't sure if I would enjoy, and I'm really glad that I picked it out of the jar because I'm liking it a lot. I don't always like Ruth Ware. I read The Lying Game earlier this year, and it was just okay for me, and one by one, I liked parts of it and didn't like the others, so it's been kind of hit and miss with her books, and I just, when I had read what this book was about, it didn't scream out to me as anything I would like, but I'm enjoying the journey, and so I'm really hoping to come to a good conclusion. I hope it's not a stupid ending. I hope it's like a good one, because there's definitely one ending that I have in mind that would be very stupid if that was it, and I really hope it's not that. So I'm going to finish up. I'll come back and tell you what my final thoughts are when I'm finished. Hello, I wanted to give you an update on this video because I have been making progress. I've just been making progress very slowly. I read The It Girl, and I actually already passed it on to a little free library because I knew it was one I wasn't going to read again, but I really enjoyed that one. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or 4 stars when I read it back in early June, and it was a solid Ruth Ware. I think it was one of the better ones that I've read from her. It was a compelling mystery. I liked the answer to it, but it's not something I'm gonna like think about long term. I don't find myself thinking about Ruth Ware's books longer than after I've read them. I kind of read them and they're done and we move on. So I got what I wanted from that one. It was entertaining. It was fun while I was reading it. Hard to put down. And I passed it along now. So I have 2 books left, unless I'm missing one. Hi, this is Editing Cheyenne. I realized that I never wrapped up what I thought about A Chronicle of Aduin. This is a book I very quickly put down. It just wasn't my thing. It felt a lot like a copy of Lord of the Rings. I know that's where he took a lot of the inspiration from, but it really wasn't working for me. There were also some things in it that were a little concerning, where like the good people were all, fair-skinned, fair-haired, and then the bad people were like dark-skinned, dark-haired. Things that I don't think he meant to be harmful, but just didn't have enough readers to kind of point out those maybe kind of subconscious biases that he's writing into the story. So I decided to put this one down. No hate to my friend, but just wasn't going to work for me. I'll have to go back and check, but I think I just have these 2 left. So I have A Song for Arbonne and Salamandastron. This is the Redwall book. This is a standalone fantasy. Now, my issue that I'm having right now is that I have what I believe to be carpal tunnel in both my hands from reading too much. And with these being small mass market paperbacks, it's like aggravating the nerve that's aggravated by like holding small books open. So right now I'm looking for hardbacks that can like stay open flat. So I am waiting for both these copies to come in on audiobook and or ebook, and I will try to read them then, because I can also read on my phone or just listen. But I am making progress in this challenge. I just wanted to give you that update on the It Girl. Just say I had a good time and I'm planning to work on these. This challenge is taking a bit longer than I had expected, but I am looking forward to jumping into these 2, because this is one of my favorite series of all times, and I remember particularly liking the Badger stories in Redwall books, and I've just heard so many good things about Guy Gavriel Kay, and this is the book of his I've been most excited to read, so I am looking forward to reading this one soon. I was a little intimidated to start it, but I'm getting excited for it. It's only 500 pages in a mass market paperback, so that's not like too much. So I'm going to wait for these to come in, and then I'll actually be able to continue making progress on this vlog. Hi, I'm here with an update finally on how I'm doing in The Broken Crown by Michelle West. I started this book in May for part of my Start a Book a Day challenge. I had no excuse starting a book that was this big during that challenge, but since I did random TBR pulls, that's what came up. But I read 30 pages, really enjoyed it, but had not touched it again until September. So here we are in September. I reread the first 30 pages to remind myself what is happening, and now I'm around page 130. I'm really enjoying this. This is a very complex story. We had kind of 2 prologue sections, and those both followed 2 different people that were like surrounding a third person, and then we switched to our main story with chapter 1, which I'm like 50 pages into that main story, and I'm not really sure how it all connects yet, but I'm really liking the writing style. I think that there was a scene at the beginning that some people had a problem with, so check trigger warnings. It wasn't triggering for me, but I definitely can see how it could have been for someone else. Sorry if we have any angle changes. We got a new cat, and he's very intrigued by all of the filming equipment, so Apologies if things change weirdly. So we have a lot of characters, and there's a lot of world building that goes into this with different like seats in the structure of power that affects how people are named, and like suffixes added to their name, prefixes added to their names. And I have to say, I'm not really understanding all of that yet. She throws a lot of info at you very quickly in this chapter 1 setting. But I will say I'm enjoying it a lot. I'm kind of just here for the ride with it. I'm finding myself drawn into assassination attempts, and there's a little bit of magic that's interesting. It's kind of reminiscent of like the Bene Gesserit's like voice in Dune. It feels very similar to that, where it's like someone's voice can like compel you to do something. And so there's a little bit of that. I think there's some other magic. There's like this child who was born who has voice very early, and there's things going on where people are maybe going to try to capture her and use her, or train her in a specific way to like sort of use her power to benefit them. And I think this is going to be a very political book. There's a lot of people and a lot of like, well, if I do this, then this will happen, and I need this person to help us do this, and this marriage will secure this throne line for us. There's a lot of that right now, and when I was looking up reviews, a lot of people said it takes to about the halfway point to really get into it. And a lot of people that did DNF'd it like in the first 100 pages, which I am now past. So I definitely feel like if things really pick up plot-wise in the latter half of the book, I think I can sort of stick with the world building, because I am finding it interesting. And there's these little things of intrigue and plot that keep me wanting to read further, even when I'm kind of bogged down by some of the things. So if you are a hefty fantasy lover, maybe check this one out. I'll keep you posted as I read more, but I just wanted to check in that I'm like 15% of the way through. So definitely, like, we can go further up, we can drop back down, we can do a lot of both throughout this journey. But just want to say that I am reading it. I am trying to finish it in September. So I'm just going to be reading a little bit every day, trying to keep going on this. But I am enjoying it so far. Hello, Editing Cheyenne here once again to say that I forgot to wrap up another book. I read Salamandastron probably sometime in August, I think. I listened to it mostly on audiobook, and I enjoyed it. I don't think it's a favorite of this series, but I was right in the fact that I did really enjoy like the Badgers and all the Badger lore that surrounds their stronghold, Salamandastron. Redwall books are always going to be comfort books for me, though I do find myself enjoying them less than I remember enjoying them as a child. I am starting to see the ways in which the author kind of repeats humor, repeats plot lines. The way he structures stories can be very similar from book to book, and so there are some things that once you kind of notice them, they bother you a little bit, whereas when I was a kid, I was just devouring the books and not really thinking about them. I was just enjoying them. I also think that there is a lot of violence and killing in them that I do question for like young readers. I don't think there's a whole lot of focus on really delving into how do these peaceful creatures justify killing some creatures when they're at war, and should we be killing people at war? Is that the best way to keep peace in the areas? And so like there are just some things that I question about them reading them as an adult, but they are still enjoyable and mostly very heartwarming and cozy reads overall. So I don't remember exactly what I gave this one, probably like a 3.5 or 4 stars. It's an enjoyable read, not my favorite of the series, but definitely like a solid installment. Hello, I am finally back. It is mid-October, nearing the end of October actually. I'm finally back to give you an update on The Broken Crown by Michelle West. I started this in May and haven't gotten around to really working on it until recently, like August, September, October. Unfortunately, I'm going to be DNFing this one. I made it to the 54% mark, so it's roughly like past 350 pages for sure, maybe like closer to the 400 page mark. And while there were things I really loved about this book, I got to a point where Michelle West was throwing more names and more places at me than I could handle, and like I just didn't have any context within which to place these people, and I was getting confused of who was who, what their goals were, what they were trying to do, who they were affiliated with. This is a very political fantasy, and while I think that Michelle West is like a great author and has really interesting ideas, there were few scenes that I would say I truly loved in here because there wasn't a lot of plot. It was a lot of people talking to each other and not really doing anything. And a lot of the action scenes that happened tended to happen sort of off the page a little bit, and it would just kind of tell us what had happened. Unfortunately, this series I don't think is going to be for me. I do plan to check out more of her work that isn't in this world. So she wrote 2 series in this world. This is a prequel series, but it was written after this series was finished. This series has like 7 books. This series has like 6 books. They're all super chunky, like 600 to 800 page books for sure. And I just think like if the world isn't working for me that well in this one, it's not going to work for me in a prequel. So I am going to be unhauling the 2 books that I had in this series and then the 1 book that I had in this one. And I do plan to read more Michelle West. I think that just this series wasn't for me. I think it takes a really strong writer to create a great epic fantasy world that isn't overwhelming to the reader, and I just think that like I was hanging in there for so long and focusing on the people that were in the South and the tribes that were there and trying to like make sense of it, and then we started adding in like a bunch more people from like other tribes and people from the North and hostages, and it was so confusing to try to keep track of everyone that I was like, I can't even tell who's on whose side or what we're doing. I'm forgetting the names of people. And so I just think that like maybe someone else who's smarter than me could like read this and follow it just fine, but for me it was too much and I wasn't enjoying it anymore. We're down to our final book, Song for Arbonne. I'm actually going to be sitting down and focusing on this a bit more. I'm 140 pages of the way through it. I go through moments of liking this and then moments of not liking it, so I'm not sure where I'm going to end up fully, but I am excited now that I kind of finished up this epic fantasy. I can kind of focus on this epic fantasy because it was hard juggling like too many of them all in one go. So I am looking forward to getting to this one. I think I will try to push through and finish it because I'm intrigued enough at what Guy Gabriel Kay is doing. I want to kind of see the story play out to the end. There's a lot going on in this book as well, but I think it's a little easier to follow than in this one because there's just less people involved overall, and I am finding myself enjoying reading from each perspective that we're getting, and I'm kind of eager to see what kind of the plot of this is because I feel like we don't have a lot of plot yet in this. We've just been kind of seeing things happen. I don't really know what the goal is, and I think that's probably the thing that's like making me not love this is that I just don't know where we're going. So I am reading it, but I just don't know what is driving everyone forward. What are we doing? Why are we watching these people? So I'm excited to continue we'll see how it goes. And then I'll finally be able to wrap up this like 5-month Taming the Shelves episode. Okay, I am back to close out this video after how many months? 5 months? 6 months? Basically. Half a year almost since I started this video. I'm DNFing A Song for Arbonne by Guy Gavriel Kay. I made it to page 190. So I feel like I definitely gave it a fair shot. And there's a couple reasons why I'm DNFing this. One, I didn't know this when I first purchased Guy Gavriel Kay books. I was new to the adult fantasy genre, just was looking for people who had a lot of chunky big books that sounded interesting. And then I learned that Guy Gavriel Kay likes to write historical fantasy. So what that means is he writes in these fantasy made-up worlds, but they're heavily based off of certain cities or countries from history. And because of that, or I guess another characteristic of his fantasy worlds is that they're very low magic. And in this page 190, in the first 200 pages, we had a couple mentions of magic. No idea how it works. No idea how important it is to the plot. And the character who has magic doesn't really ever say anything. She's kind of this stoic priestess that sometimes talks and sometimes doesn't, is very vague and mystical about it, and like, you know, who knows what we can do kind of thing. And that's just not the kind of fantasy I love. One of the things I love about Sanderson novels is that they are full of magic and characters using magic and magic developing over centuries. Like, I love a book with an interesting world and interesting magic. The other reason I struggle with the historical-based fantasy is that I feel like I can just see the research and the history behind it. It kind of just feels like putting a fantasy blanket over like the real world. So I don't know a ton about when this is being written after it's like Provence in some time where there's like lots of troubadours and stuff like that. If I haven't told you what this is about, let me tell you. This is basically about two kingdoms that are kind of at war, but not fully at war yet. So in the north, it is a patriarchy. It's a very woman-hating culture. It's like, you know, they burn women for being witches. Women aren't allowed to be in power. The only thing they're good for is to be like married off and to have children. And then you have the south, where women are somewhat more accepted. It's run by a countess. The whole country is run by a countess, and, you know, women generally have more say. I won't say that they had like a ton more say than like men, so it wasn't exactly like opposites, but just they could be in power. They could have a little bit of their own ambitions and things like that. And then there's the main character is like a guy from the south who's like sort of learning that like women can be empowered too, and oh, we don't have to burn women who use magic, and things like that. And so I think Guy Gavriel Kay is trying to be a feminist here, but honestly, most of the women felt like caricatures or very 2D, except for the one woman who we met fairly recently, who then becomes the love interest of the main character, or at least I think that's where it's going. So, you know, I don't know. Trying to be a feminist, succeeding in some ways and not in others. So I DNF'd this. It was a little slow. The writing was fine. It's very beautiful writing. But the plot, it felt like every time we started to go somewhere, it stopped. It was hard to have many people to root for. Like, I don't know about rooting for a man who, like, really doesn't view women as people, and him learning to view women as people, I'm hoping, by the end of the book. That's not that interesting to me. So, I'm going to DNF this book. I'm also going to be giving away the other 2 books of his that I have, just because I don't think any of his work is going to be for me. The low fantasy, like, doesn't work as well for me as, like, a much more, like, high fantasy world. I want dragons and dwarves and elves and crazy magical creatures and magical powers and wizards and witches. Like, I want all that. And I don't think I'm going to get that from these, so I'm fine, like, passing them along. I know better now than I did when I got all these. And that wraps up this very long-running Taming the Shelves episode. I think I've learned it's better for me to pick the books one at a time, because if I pick them all in one go, it's easier for me to, like, take absolutely forever to finish this one and the Broken Crown. Like, I just couldn't really get it going. So I think for the next episode and future episodes, I will always just pull one at a time and read it first before picking another one. I think that's, like, the way to go for me. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and hopefully we will have a new one, probably not until December or January, because I do have lots of video plans that are going to be wrapping up in November. So I think I already have all my videos planned for November. So maybe December, maybe January, kicking off the new year, we'll have some more of these episodes. But I really enjoy them. I think it's great to just choose something random from my shelves, force me to pick it up, and then sometimes it works and I find a favorite new author, like it did with Tana French. Sometimes it doesn't, and I can make some room on my shelves for books that I'm really interested in. Thank you so much for sticking around. Subscribe if you like these videos to see more of them in the future, as well as all my other fun challenges and reading vlogs if you would like. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.